Want to have better conversations? Join my free 21-day confidence building course. You'll learn how to effectively talk about yourself and clearly explain what you do, so you'll be able to have more meaningful conversations with less awkward silences. Sign up now at freeconfidencecourse.com. You're listening to Stand Out Get Noticed, the show that helps you communicate with confidence so you can stand out from the crowd and get noticed by all the right people. If you want to be a person of influence and achieve success in business and in life, this podcast is for you. To subscribe to the show, go to thecmethod.com. Hi there, Rockstar. I'm Christina Canters, host of this show. My voice is a little croaky today because I spent the last 5 days at a music festival dancing my little heart out in the dusty paddocks of country Victoria. It was about 2 hours drive west of Melbourne. We also got back a day later than expected, which is why this episode is slightly delayed. Normally I release episodes on Wednesday mornings for people in Australia, which is Tuesday night for my North American and European listeners. Howdy to you guys. But today it's out Wednesday afternoon, Australian time. And normally I podcast from my home studio, but today I am at Hub Melbourne, my co-work space, in a little recording hood thing, hard to describe. And that's why the audio sounds a little bit different if you're a regular listener. So you might hear some people walking around, you might hear some trams outside. Maybe it'll add to the ambience, who knows. And you might hear some doors slamming. Hopefully it doesn't distract too much from the content. Okay, so today's episode is based on the workshop that I'll be running at Hub Melbourne this coming Tuesday. That's Tuesday the 2nd of February. And it's all about how to create your personal elevator pitch. Or, in other words, how to suck less at explaining what you do. Now, if you're in Melbourne and around at 12:30 p.m. this Tuesday, the 2nd of February, go to the Eventbrite sign-up page. I'll put a link to the show notes at thecmethod.com/suckless. That's thecmethod.com/suckless, and you can register there. It's totally free to come along, and it's going to be a fun, interactive workshop with plenty of time to practice your personal pitch so that you're prepared and ready to win people over and have awesome, non-awkward conversations when you're at your next meetup, party, or networking event. So, as a lead up to that workshop, I thought I'd give you a taste of how you can get started with your elevator pitch, or also known as how to suck less at explaining what you do. And I'm going to share with you 3 simple ways in which you can do this. But really quick, before I get into that, I'd like to give a shout out to Maplewood Mish, who left a beautiful podcast review in iTunes. Now, Maplewood Mish is not Mish's, I'm assuming your name is Mish. It's not her real name, or maybe it's a guy, not sure. That's just the iTunes username. I don't actually know what your real name is, but thank you very much, Maplewood Mish. And Mish writes, "Where has this podcast been my whole life?" 5 stars, and writes, "Chanced upon Christina during the week. Christina and her guests have changed my life. Great format, very engaging, and with tips you can really use and implement into daily life. Highly, highly recommended." Thank you so much, Maplewood Mish. You are a rock star, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time out to leave a review. Now, if you too enjoy the show, I would love if you could leave an iTunes review. It takes a few minutes only. Just head over to thecmethod.com/iTunes. That's a special link just for you. It'll take you to a quick tutorial on how to leave an iTunes review. So if you don't know how to do it, don't stress. Just go to that link, thecmethod.com/iTunes. And there'll be a link there that you can click that will take you to the place where you leave the review. Again, that's thecmethod.com/iTunes. Okay, are you ready to start having better conversations? Let's go. How often do you get asked, what do you do? If you're like me, it's all the freaking time. And when you don't have a normal job, explaining what you do can be tricky. I mean, it's tricky enough for those who do have a normal job, right? Yes, you may love your work, which is awesome, but being asked repeatedly to explain your business or your software or your role or your collaboration project, then getting nothing but blank stares or polite nods can be really frustrating. Now, I bet that you know what you do, and you know that it's awesome or you really enjoy it. But when you start to explain it to someone else, especially someone from a different industry, well, you kind of struggle. And as your conversation buddy's eyes glaze over, the conversation slowly takes a downward spiral until you ultimately give up and hastily attempt to save the conversation by exclaiming, "Hey, isn't this sushi great?" We've all been there. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be that way. You can learn how to effectively explain what you do and avoid the blank looks, the polite nods, and the furtive glances towards the nearest exit. But Christina, why should I bother? You might be wondering. I don't like talking about myself anyway. Well, think about it this way. When you suck at explaining what you do, not only does it lead to awkward conversations and subsequently less social confidence, but you also lose out on awesome opportunities to share your message and get what you want. I'll say that again. Every time someone asks, "What do you do?" it's an opportunity to share your message and get what you want. So for example, maybe you want more customers or clients. Maybe you want new job opportunities or funding for your startup. Maybe you want to collaborate with someone on a project. Or maybe you simply want to spread the word about something that you're passionate about. Whatever your message is, whenever someone asks about you or what you do, this is your golden opportunity to share it, to give a mini pitch as such for you and your business. So don't waste it. Here are 3 ways to explain what you do. Number 1, never the naked occupation. How often have you or heard someone rattle off a 1 or 2 word title when asked what they do? For example, I'm a graphic designer, or I'm a developer, or as I used to say, I'm an architect. I call this the naked occupation because you're leaving it stripped bare with no other information. And the problem with this is that it doesn't lead the conversation anywhere. I mean, what if your conversation buddy doesn't know anything about web development? They'll politely say, "Oh, okay, interesting," which really means I have no freaking idea what that is. Now, the goal here is to have a great conversation. You need to make it easy for the other person to follow up by adding something to your naked occupation. For example, you could add an interesting fact or expand on a project you're working on, or even talk about something that you enjoy doing more. For example, I'm an architect. I actually worked on a part of this building we're standing in. Yeah? Or you could say, I'm a graphic designer. I'm currently working on a children's book about climate change. I was inspired by my friend Marita for that one. Or you could say, I'm a bookkeeper by day, but when I'm not doing that, I play piano in a jazz band. See how you can add on extra bits of information? So you wouldn't leave your house naked, would you? That would be awkward for everyone. Similarly, to avoid an awkward conversation, don't leave your occupation naked. The second way to create an awesome elevator pitch is to show how you're different. Now, there are loads of developers, accountants, designers, photographers, so on out there, okay? If someone simply told me, I'm an accountant, I'd be thinking, yay, so what? Why is that important? You need to show people how you are different to the rest. What makes you special? How do you help people? And why should they care? So for example, you could say, I'm an accountant. I specialize in helping small business owners get their books in line, which saves them loads of stress at tax time. Okay. Now, if I'm a small business owner, I'd be thinking, oh, cool, you could help me. Or if not, I might be thinking of someone I know who could use your help. So it's not about talking about how good you are, all right? It's about giving the other person an opportunity to better understand what you do. A lot of people I speak to don't like talking about themselves because they feel like it's just them talking about how good they are, when it's really not, okay? If you can share how you help people and the specific people that you help, that's just stating the facts, okay? All right, and the third and final thing I'm going to share with you today to be better at creating an elevator pitch and having better conversations is to eliminate jargon. So I remember once hanging out with a friend and a group of her doctor colleagues. They were all surgeons and doctors, and they may as well have been speaking Swahili. I couldn't contribute to the conversation at all. Now, the same applies to one-on-one conversations. Step into your conversation buddy's shoes for a moment. If you're using industry jargon, how are they supposed to understand or carry on the conversation with you? Now, you may have had this experience before and may have even given up trying to explain. The other day, I asked a fellow hubber, so another person who works at my co-work space, I asked him what he does, and he replied, and I quote, "I'm a systems integration architect," or whatever that means, and he says, "working on large-scale transformational projects." And I was like, I have no idea what that is. When I asked what his response would be if a non-industry person asked him, he paused for a moment and then said, "I'm a former ski racer with a bad back." And I cracked up laughing. He decided that it was just too hard to attempt to explain his role, so he avoided the topic altogether. But I'm here to tell you that there is a way to explain what you do without using jargon. So if this sounds like you, try this simple formula. Ask your conversation buddy a question to see if they relate to it, and then go from there. Oh, there's a door slam. Okay, and it sounds like this. Do you know when blank and blank happens? Well, I work on the blank that does blank. All right, I'll put that into an example for you. So I once asked a friend who works at one of the big banks to explain what the hell his title quantitative analyst meant. And he said, "Well, you know when you go to a bank to apply for a home loan?" I was like, "Yeah." He says, "Well, all your information goes into the system and I work on the mathematical algorithm behind that system that determines whether you get the loan or not." And I was like, that makes sense. You see what I mean? So ask a question and get clarification from that person first. Do you know blank? Or you know when this happens? And if they go, yeah, then you can go on from there. So you're like testing them out and seeing what works. And not only will you be having better conversations with less awkwardness, you may even find yourself with a new friend, opportunity, or even client. So try out those 3 things, okay? Number 1, don't leave your occupation naked. Remember, always add on something. Number 2, show how you're different. So share who you help and how you help them. And finally, eliminate jargon. And don't assume that people understand, especially with that jargon thing. A lot of people are actually afraid to ask. Like they're afraid to say, "Oh, analyst, what does that mean?" Okay, because they feel like they should know. And I used to be like that, but now I don't really care. So if someone rattles off a title, like the other day someone said to me, "I'm a project manager." And I said, "What does that mean?" And then they went into the actual projects that they manage, okay? So don't be afraid. If someone gives you a naked occupation, don't be afraid to say to them, "I don't know what that means. Can you please explain?" Or you can even ask them, "Oh, so who do you help and how do you help them?" Okay, so that's another way you can carry on a conversation. But when it comes to explaining what you do, I have to emphasize how important it is to practice. And this is why the in-person workshop that I mentioned earlier will be so valuable. Because when you're out and about, right, the "what do you do" question comes up really quickly. You know, you meet someone, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Oh, so what do you do?" And you really don't have much time to think about it, okay? So practicing saying it over and over will actually get you into that habit, into that routine, and into that practice of it flowing off your tongue, which is why in the in-person workshop, I'll be doing a lot of practice to get you practicing it, saying it over and over again. If you do find yourself sort of pausing when someone asks you, "What do you do?" and you're like, "Oh crap, what was that reply I was meant to make again?" Here's a tip. You can repeat back, "What do I do?" Right? So someone says to you, "What do you do?" You can go, oh, what do I do?" And then you could even say, "For fun or for work?" Right? And even just that, making that little bit of conversation buys you a few extra seconds for you to get clear in your mind what you're going to say. Okay? Or you can give them a silly answer like, "I sell guns and drugs to children." And that gives you a few more seconds because they'll hopefully have a laugh about it. Just make sure they're not a cop or a human services officer. Otherwise you might be in a little bit of trouble. But using something silly just helps you to have a laugh and gives you a couple of seconds to think about your real response. All right? So I strongly encourage you to give that a go and you will be having awesome conversations in no time. So that wraps up episode 44 for this week. Again, if you're in Melbourne, I would love to see you at the elevator pitch workshop that I'll be running at Hub Melbourne. For details and to register, go to the show notes at thecmethod.com/suckless. That's thecmethod.com/suckless. Alrighty. Thank you for being awesome and thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you listening. And I will see you next week for another episode. My name's Christina Canters, and this has been Stand Out, Get Noticed.